For 15 years, Marcus Holloway believed his life was built on solid ground. His marriage to Clarissa had felt like a true partnership. She was someone he once thought understood him completely. They lived in a modern, comfortable suburban home. Nothing extravagant, but entirely theirs. Children had never been part of the equation, and he was content with that. His focus had always been on his career, pouring years of effort into a business that started small but grew into a multi-million-dollar success. Long hours, smart investments, and dedication had given them financial security. Then came the family estate, an old mansion that his parents passed down to him when they decided to retire. It wasn't just a property, it was history. 7 acres of sprawling green land, a house that held the weight of generations. It was where he grew up, where his father had taught him to fish in the creek out back, where his mother's voice filled the kitchen as she hummed through Sunday dinners. Restoring it wasn't about money. It was about honoring that legacy. And Clarissa knew that. At least, he had believed she did. One evening, everything changed. They were sitting in the living room, the quiet hum of the television filling the space, when she set down her wine glass with enough force to make him look up. Arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, she fixed him with a stare that sent a chill through him. Hand over the inheritance, Marcus. The words weren't a question. They were a demand. At first, he thought she was joking. He waited for the punchline. It never came. His chest tightened as he placed his own drink down, carefully, slowly. He searched her face for an explanation. What are you talking about? His voice was steady, but inside, something twisted. You've been sitting on that property long enough, she said, leaning in. It's time to cash it in. We could do so much with that money. The look in her eyes wasn't one of love. It was something else. Something sharp. Something hungry. His answer was immediate. No, it wasn't just a financial asset. It was a part of his family, his roots. But Clarissa didn't see it that way, or maybe she didn't want to. She said nothing else that night, just went to bed in silence. But Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how long she'd been thinking like this. Had she always seen the estate as a payday? Had he been blind to it all along? The next morning, she was all smiles over coffee, as if the conversation had never happened. But Marcus felt the first crack in what he had once thought was unshakable. He kept replaying her words in his mind. Hand it over, like it was hers to claim. The estate wasn't just a number on a bank statement. It was his family's heartbeat. His parents, Nolan and Marjorie, were more than names on a deed. They were the life inside the house. Selling it out from under them would be a betrayal. A few days later, he brought it up again, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. He tried to make her understand. It's not just a house, he told her. It's where I come from. Clarissa didn't even hesitate. She shrugged, her expression unreadable. Marcus, it's real estate. Don't make it more than it is. That hurt, but he didn't argue. Not then. He assumed she'd let it go eventually. She always did. This time was different. She started dropping hints, little jabs about how practical people didn't cling to the past, how they could be living so much bigger if he would just see reason. He would nod, change the subject. But something had shifted. Then one night, he overheard her on the phone, whispering, talking about assessments, time frames. She hung up quickly when she saw him, smiled like it was nothing. Just a friend, she said. Marcus didn't believe her. That was the moment he knew. The loyalty he had assumed was there wasn't real. Not with her. And once a crack appeared, it only spread wider. A week later, he was halfway across the world, sitting on the side of a Tokyo office building, when her message came through. It was done. His stomach dropped. His first call was to his father. His fingers fumbled over the numbers, his pulse hammering as it rang. His dad's voice was calm but weary. Marcus, you all right, son? Dad, what's happening? A long sigh. Then the truth. She did it, Marcus. Sent in some guys with machines yesterday. It's gone. We're at Peter's place now. Your cousin's been good to us. For a long moment, Marcus couldn't speak. He just listened to the hum of the line. You're okay, he finally managed. We're all right, his father assured him. Your mom's holding up. We didn't see it coming. Marcus promised to call again soon and hung up, his thoughts spinning. Clarissa had actually done it. She had torn down the house, the place he grew up in, the place he had fought to protect. That night, alone in his hotel room, he looked out over the glittering city lights, trying to make sense of it. Had she waited until he was gone on purpose? The timing was too perfect. He picked up her message again. Read it over. Then, out of nowhere, he laughed. A bitter, sharp sound. She thought she had won. Thought she had walked away with $7 million in her pocket. "Oh, Clarissa," he muttered, shaking his head. "You have no idea what you've done." He didn't know the full extent of it yet, how she had pulled it off, what she was planning next. But he knew one thing. She had made a mistake. A huge one. Because that house? It had never been his to begin with. The estate she thought she had turned into liquid wealth wasn't his to sell. It was owned by his parents, locked in a family trust they had established long before he ever met her. His name wasn't on the deed. It never had been. And the land? That was the best part. The estate was classified as a historical property, locked under strict county preservation laws. You couldn't even take down a tree without a mountain of paperwork, let alone demolish a house that had stood for generations. Clarissa had misunderstood everything. Marcus leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair, almost grinning at how spectacularly she had miscalculated. She hadn't just underestimated him. She had doomed herself. The next morning, he called his cousin Peter, the one housing his parents. "So what happened?" Marcus asked. Peter didn't hesitate. "She showed up with 2 guys and a couple machines.